Hi guys, Suzie Yule Diadem, living positive regardless. Doesn't matter the point at which you are in life, but we love positivity all the way. I'm glad that we have another opportunity to share our lives and to impact each other positively. I want to welcome the new viewers, the new subscribers, those who have joined us recently. Karibuni sana. I'll not take too long before I introduce you to our guest. Welcome sana. Bwana JN, for a second time you are gracing our studios.
Thank you.
And we are glad. And so I will not keep you waiting, guys, so I'll just go right into it. And maybe before I go to saying why we are here again, I'll let my guest introduce himself, maybe for the new viewers or for one who have not yet watched what we did last time. So karibu.
Thank you, Susan. I'm delighted to be back here yet again on your invitation. I'm Jeremiah Karaja. That's called me Karaja JN. I'm a born-again Christian. I love the Lord as my personal Savior. Professionally, I'm a certified secretary. I have also done other things in life. I have done law, HR, and so many other things. In terms of family, I'm a family person. Okay. Married to one wife, and because of the discussion we are having today, I must clarify that that wife is a woman. Okay. So married to a female wife.
Wow.
Thank you.
And yes, our viewers, his introduction kind of informs the reason as we are here, because today I want us to discuss of a very hot topic that is going on in our nation because of a court ruling that was done a few weeks ago or a few days ago that was done. And so that's why we are here. We want to discuss about LGBTQ, and we want to understand all these things that are happening here and there, and we also want to know whether it is okay for us as a country, as a nation, to be discussing what we are discussing, if it is necessary, and if it is necessary, if the right steps are being taken. I believe, JN, we are not here to judge anybody. We are not here to judge someone's reasoning, but my desire would to try and bring some sanity in our society and to be as reasonable as possible. So I welcome all of you, regardless of which side you think you are. Come on board, reason with us, and maybe at the end of the day you can also give us your views. You can read your comments, and at the end of the day we will still all live in harmony as a nation. So JN, I'll just get right into it, and I just want to get to understand, what do you understand by this term LGBTQ?
Thank you, Susan. LGBTQ, and sometimes they also add an I at the end. It stands for many things. There is lesbians, there is the gays, there is bisexuals, there are transgender, intersex, queer community. Okay. So it's just initials for all those things.
Now with that, what is this? The court ruling, now that you have told us you have done law, so you better understand. Sometimes as we hear things in the news and we really don't understand clearly what this is all about. So maybe you could shed some light to us what this ruling was all about.
Yes, when we talk about these issues of LGBTQ, generally what we are discussing is those who believe, for instance, in the Bible, believe that God created man and woman, and he blessed them and he told them to reproduce and fill the earth. So the whole agenda is actually questioning that arrangement, and coming up with an alternative way of how people can relate in sexually. So, and even in terms of gender generally, such that you can decide, today I feel like a man, tomorrow you feel like a lady, and we should not judge you according to this agenda, because it is your right to decide what you feel today, and tomorrow you may change. So today if you feel like a woman, we take you as a woman.
Okay.
If tomorrow you feel like a man, you take you as a man, and because of those feelings, sometimes you also get attracted. If today I'm feeling like a woman, I get attracted to men, and the reverse is true. So there is this gentleman called Eric Getari.
Okay.
Eric wanted to register an NGO. So in Kenya, if you want to register an non-governmental organization, you go to a body called the NGO Coordination Board.
Okay.
So he lodged an application for registration of his NGO, and in that NGO, part of the things they were to promote the agenda regarding LGBTQ. But the NGO Coordination Board, we shall call it the board from here on, the board declined to register that. Reason being, they argued according to the penal code or according to the laws of Kenya, those issues of LGBTQ, gay marriages and all that are illegal, and therefore they could not register that NGO.
Okay.
But Eric was of the opinion that the Constitution of Kenya has given the freedom of association to every Kenyan, and for that reason, being a person, because the Constitution says for every person, being a person, then they are entitled to register an NGO to promote their agenda. So Eric went to the High Court. Okay. He won at the High Court. He went to the NGO Coordination Board, appealed the decision to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal upheld the decision of the High Court. The board went further to the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in Kenya, and the court was in agreement with Eric that actually that NGO should be registered, and therefore the court went further to direct the board to register the NGO to promote these practices on LGBT. And maybe just for purposes of to clarify, in court, it was not the real LGBTQI, it was LGBTI. Okay. So the queer community were not included in the entire that case.
Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe you want us to not to hear so much of law that we don't understand. Maybe you just want to make us understand some of these terms, like when you talk of pinnacle and all that. Maybe you want to set some light for us to understand what it means.
Yes. Maybe one of the terms I used is the Constitution. When we talk of Constitution, the Constitution is the primary law, and all the other laws we have derive their authority from that Constitution. So if I may use layman's language, I would say, quote unquote, is the biggest law. So just if, for instance, you are a Muslim, your supreme law is Quran. If you are a Christian, your supreme law is the Bible. And therefore, even if your church, for instance, was to come up with any other law, they would have to check what does the Bible say, so that the laws of the church are aligned to what the Bible says. Yeah. So in Kenya, our supreme law is the Constitution. Okay. Now, once you have the Constitution as a framework, then you have so many other laws which we call Acts of Parliament. Okay. Now, one of the Acts of Parliament is the Penal Code. The Penal Code lists all behaviors, all actions, all offenses. And it says, for example, if you do this, this is a crime. It defines what that crime is and what will happen to you. For example, it will define what murder is, and if you murder, what will happen to you. Okay. So the same penal code lists the issues we are discussing today, and it calls them by various names, which we will be explaining later. So basically, when I talk about Constitution and penal code, that's what I mean.
Okay. From the point of a lawyer, and explaining to us how this whole discussion came up and how the the majority in the court ruled. Do you think you would agree with what the court ruled?
Now, in this case, we call it NGO Coordination Board versus Eric Getari and 4 others. There are 2 things. One, I referred to the Constitution. Under Article 45 of our Constitution, the Constitution gives rights to every person who is an adult, a right to marry another person of the opposite gender. That is to mean a man can marry a woman. But the same Constitution goes further to give rights of what we call rights of association, that every person have a right to associate with others. So that is to mean, for instance, if Susan and Jayan want to form an association, we can form an association. However, that right to association is limited. When we say it's limited, it means although the Constitution has given us a right to associate, but the law, another act of parliament, can limit, can reduce that, if I may call it so, can reduce that right of association on various grounds. Among them being maybe what we are associating to do is illegal. Now, I did refer to the Penal Code. The Penal Code, which is the act that lists all crimes or all behaviors or actions which are defined as crimes. And when I talk about crimes or criminal behaviors, a crime is that offense which you commit against the society. For example, if you murder, if for instance I was to kill you, but I'm not killing you, I have not just committed an offense against you. I have offended the entire society because you are a taxpayer, government will lose taxes. You are a daughter of somebody, that somebody has lost a daughter. You are afraid of somebody, that somebody has lost a friend. So you have actually offended the entire society. So a criminal offense is so serious that it's actually the state or the government which takes the offender to court, not the person who has been offended. Because if, for instance, you owed me money and I refuse to pay, that is just between you and I. I have only offended you. But when I commit a crime, including if I slapped you, that is a criminal offense. So now these issues, LGBTQ issues, are classified, are among those classified under the Penal Code. Maybe not directly, but allow me just to read what the Act says. Section 162 of the Penal Code says it discusses issues of what we would call unnatural offenses. So the Act recognizes that there are things which nature itself tells you what you should do. So things that go beyond nature, it calls them unnatural offenses. It says that any person who has carnal knowledge of any person against the order of nature, or has carnal knowledge of an animal, or permits a male person to have carnal knowledge of him or her against the order of nature, is guilty of a felony. When you talk of a felony, it's just an offense, if I may call it so, and is liable to imprisonment for 14 years. Now, when you talk of carnal knowledge, maybe this could be clearer if you read the Old Testament. You see, and Adam knew his wife. That is the knowledge you are talking about, not the knowledge of books. So it says, is guilty of a felony and is liable to imprisonment of 14 years, provided that in the case of an offense under paragraph A, that is carnal knowledge of any person against the order of nature, the offender shall be liable to imprisonment for 21 years. So one of the things you note in any criminal offense, the punishment is usually very harsh, and it almost always has an option of imprisonment, because that is somebody who need to be removed from the society. So these issues of LGBTQ, they go against nature. That's why they are among what we are discussing. The offense was committed, so part one we say if the offense was committed without the consent of the other person who was carnally known, or the offense was committed that person's consent, but the consent was obtained by force or by means of threats or intimidation of some kind, or by fear of bodily harm, or by means of false representation. So what we are saying here, in simpler terms, say a man sleeping with another, or if I may use the words of the law or of the Old Testament, a man knowing another man.
Cannot knowledge.
Yes, it's a criminal offense, and you are seeing here very harsh punishment, 14 years, 21 years, and also, and it talks, when you talk of consent, is where the two have agreed. But when you talk about without consent, is where one is knowing the other without the other knowing.
That is being known.
That is being known. Attempt. Then sections 163 of the Penal Code has a very interesting one. It talks about attempts, not even now the knowledge, even an attempt to commit a natural offense. It says, any person who attempts to commit any of these offenses specified in section 162 is guilty of a felony and is liable to imprisonment for 7 years. Just an attempt, you go to prison for 7 years. Then 165, the same Penal Code, talks of indecent practices between males. Any male person who, whether in public or private, commit any act of gross indecency with another male person, or procures another male person to commit any act of gross indecency with him, or attempts to procure the commission of any such act by any male person with himself or with another male person, whether in public or in private, is guilty of a felony and is liable to imprisonment for 5 years. This is just an attempt, and the law says they should actually be behind bars for 5 years. So what we are saying is this issue of lesbian and gay practices, we can categorize them, or rather they are categorized in what we are calling all these terms we have just read, and natural offenses, canon knowledge against the order of nature, they are gross indecent practices, and they are criminal in Kenya. They are illegal in Kenya. So the interesting part is that the courts, by the way, never said that they are not illegal. The courts clarified that they are not dealing with the illegality or legality of these issues. They were dealing with a specific issue, whether this group or LGBTI should be registered as an NGO in Kenya. So which then means that as far as the law in Kenya stands today, it's still illegal to be associated with either as a gay or as a lesbian. Is illegal and you can be imprisoned. However, the interesting part is that the court went further to say, even though the law is as it stands is that it is illegal, however, we find that these people have rights to associate, and therefore they should be allowed to register their NGO. Now, you asked me whether, in my opinion, as a lawyer, I agree with that court ruling. My answer would be, if to associate as thieves or rapists or murderers or whichever criminal activity you may think of, if it would be legal for such persons to associate, then it is also legal for this group to be given the right to associate. In short, the Constitution, although it says that every person has a right to of association, but it gives circumstances under which such rights could be limited.
Okay.
Now, these people, what they are doing is illegal in nature, is against nature, as the Act has defined. They are natural practices which are illegal, and therefore we cannot allow them to associate, because when they meet, what will they be discussing? They will be discussing something which is already illegal. I know the courts argued mostly from the rights of association, but I think what I would respectfully differ with the courts is maybe tomorrow, if somebody went to the NGO Coordination Board and tell them, we want to register Robbers Association of Kenya, so would they be expected to decline such registration? Yet the court has already said for people who it's clear their objective is illegal, they should be allowed to associate.
Okay. Because you're saying it's very clear that even where there is consent, where the two men or the two women have agreed, it's still illegal by the fact that it goes against the nature.
Yes, it is illegal, and you know what is legal or illegal is defined by law, and the people of Kenya every 5 years elect their members of parliament. Members of parliament, when they sit in parliament, they come up with laws which ideally should be a representation of the wishes of the people of Kenya. So our representatives came up with a penal code, and which specifically says issues of relationship between men and men, women and women are unnatural, and therefore they are criminal in nature. Whether the two men agree and they are doing it voluntarily, and we have read the Act even talks of whether in private or in public. Of course, it's difficult to know when they are doing it in private. How will we know? But the Act goes to that detail of defining that even when they do it in private, if for any incidents we come to know, then the act they are doing is a criminal activity, and they should go behind bars. And as I have said, the court never nullified the legality of that provision of the act. So, and I know even as we are talking, there is already another petition in court that is pending before the High Court, and they are looking at I can't recall whether it's at the High Court or I think it's at the High Court level. The argument is whether these provisions of penal code are constitutional, or they should be rendered unconstitutional, and therefore from today we allow men and men to marry, women and women to marry. Now, maybe to give a context, we are not the first country to go that way. So don't be surprised even if tomorrow the courts rule that actually the penal code, as far as it limits marriage or sexual relations to be between people of opposite gender, the High Court or the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court could actually say that is unconstitutional. Our neighbors here, South Africa, have gone that way. So in South Africa, those who want to be gays, if you go there, you can be legally wedded to your dear beloved man. So, so it will not be. But in Kenya, in our context, as the law stands now, it is illegal. So that's why it's very interesting. When the court on one hand says yes, it is illegal in Kenya, but on the other hand, we have allowed them to associate. It's very interesting.
Yeah. I don't know whether I want to ask you this. Of course, I want to ask you, but I don't know whether you want to answer me this, because having clearly defined it so well that it is illegal, yet this thing is not like it is in private as per se. We are saying if they do it in privacy, how we'll get to know. But we have seen them, they are public, they are coming out. Those who have come out, I won't mention names, but there are those who have come out to public and they say, me, I'm of this, and this is actually who I'm dating. There are those. How is it that in Kenya, if I came out and I said I'm a thief and this is where I stole, I'm just saying that because legally we have said it is illegal. How come that these people are going scot-free and they are allowed even the freedom to just publicize what they are doing? Wow, what a topic. We just take a short break, or rather a long one, because we shall upload the part 2 tomorrow. This marks the end of part 1, and I can tell you so much wisdom in this topic. I think we all need to hear this. So see you tomorrow. For now, subscribe, share, let's learn together. Bye.